Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today we're going to be looking back and recapping the 2024 gardening season for myself. We're going to look at my goals that I started in January, see which ones were successes and see which ones were failures. Okay, so every year I set a list of goals for myself in regards to gardening, and I share them with you. And so 2024, I had four main goals that I was really working with. I typically will set like a group of main goals and then smaller goals within each of those larger ones. I highly encourage that you build yourself a wide variety of goals, not just big, massive ones, because the big, massive ones are really hard to achieve. And so really just kind of focusing and making sure that you're giving yourself baby steps into those bigger goals really helps you feel good about checking stuff off the list. And 2024, it makes me laugh because I love looking back at what my thoughts were in January compared to where I am now in my gardening world, because it always changes. Every year I am a completely different gardener than I was at the beginning of the year compared to where I am at the end of the year. Okay, and so let's get into it. I will be posting a video on my goals for 2025. That'll be a separate thing. We'll talk through those. I'm always very interested to hear what your goals are, or what your goals were for this past year. Let me know if you were able to achieve them or if you struggled. And just know that most of us struggle. So it's totally okay if you didn't meet your goals. You can reestablish or tweak them and get them set up for 2025. Okay, number one on my list for 2024 was companion planting. And would I rate this a success or a failure? I would rate this a failure because legitimately I forgot that this was one of my goals. I was very adamant about the beginning of the year. I was reading books on companion planting. I had all these plans, and then I don't know why, just totally forgot it. Didn't really focus on it very much at all. So I would consider this a failure. I did do some things, which is great. I mixed eggplants, peppers, and tomatoes among some of my raised beds that had cut flowers. And while that was okay, I found that that wasn't really a style that I liked. I would forget about the veggies mixed into the flowers because a lot of my cut flowers, I can just plant them and walk away until it's time to harvest them. And that is not the situation with vegetables, because I feel like a lot of times with vegetables and fruits, there's a lot more pest, disease, and upkeep with them instead of, just your zinnias that you're throwing out. So there was a little bit of confusion and forgetfulness regarding that. Do I think it looked pretty? Absolutely. I thought it looked really pretty to mix in, especially the eggplants because they had just these big, beautiful leaves and very whimsical. So I thought they looked really, really nice. But yeah, so I did mix in some of the vegetables within. I did do companion planting in regards to not just vegetables versus flowers, but flowers and flowers mixed in. And I did do some companion planting for the future, such as my beautiful Don Juan climbing rose. I planted a Jackmani clematis at the base with the hopes that those two would intertwine and be companion kind of design element within the garden. And I did do that in a few places, which is really kind of fun and interesting. And then of course I did the basics by putting marigolds mixed in with my vegetables in order to deter some pests and things like that. But do I really feel like I made that like a big focus of my 2024 gardening season? I do not. Okay, number two on my list of goals for 2024 was installing hardscapes. And I would consider this one an absolute success. I made a lot of massive changes, particularly in the backyard this last year. And when I talked about hardscapes, I meant like rock, retaining walls, mulch, structure, height, things along those lines. And I definitely hit that because if you know that this past year, I actually ended up taking almost 50% of the grass in my backyard and covering it over. I covered it over with a combination of cardboard and weed barrier over the top of that, and then layers of mulch. And that was really great. It really cut down on the amount of grass in my backyard, which I prefer that. I'd rather have more gardening space and less upkeep in the lawn. I also installed a couple of new taller raised beds and a beautiful trellis garden arch that I built myself, which was really great. And I grew loofah and birdhouse gourds on it this last year, which was really nice. That added some interesting structure. I also purchased our pre-made arch, a metal arch from Amazon that I installed in another portion of my garden as like an entrance. That looks really, really good. I also installed a little miniature retaining wall on one of my gardens that was kind of falling off. The soil was eroding, so I did that. That was a simple one. But yeah, I did a lot of work on hardscapes this year to really kind of bring about fruition to being able to maneuver throughout my garden easily. I was dealing with drainage issues, so I was dealing with muddy paths and things like that. So this was a huge help. But regarding hardscapes, I think I did real good. Very successful. I did it all myself, which is really great. With the exception, I did have a French drain installed to help with drainage prior to installing some of these hardscapes. And I'm really, really pleased with the results. My backyard garden changed dramatically this year. And hardscapes they're not my favorite thing to do, but they're a necessity and they tend to need to happen first. Putting in those hardscapes and then building your garden around those hardscapes, that tends to be something that needs to happen first. And I kind of didn't do that, but coming in this year, going back, filling in the space as needed has been really, really good. And I'm very happy with the progress that I've made. Okay, number 3 on my 2024 garden goals was more heirloom chrysanthemums. And I definitely feel like that was a success. In retrospect, I feel like this ended up being a smaller goal as I continue to grow throughout my 2024 garden season, because the realization that I already had quite a few heirloom chrysanthemums came along. And so while I did install some new ones, I didn't do as many as I thought I would end up doing, which is totally fine. Things evolve, things change, but I did manage to do some new varieties. Okay, so I utilized a new supplier this last time, Clara Joyce Flowers. Wasn't super thrilled with the cuttings. They were not as robust as cuttings I've received from King's Mums. So that was, that was a little disappointing. Most of them did okay. I definitely could not just plant them outside because they're so little. I had to grow them along inside and really didn't end up getting them planted out until late summer, early fall. Some of the varieties that I ended up choosing were cranberry wine, which none of these cuttings have come to fruition. That was the other thing. They were so small, which is, it's fine. They're cuttings. They're not supposed to be giant plants. However, I'm used to getting cuttings from King's Mums that are definitely like 6 inches tall and fully rooted, like lots of roots. And then also I bought my heirloom chrysanthemums from Bluestone Perennials. So that comes as an actual like 3x3 plant with a full root system. So this was just not what I was expecting. It's not that it was bad. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I probably should have done more research in regards to that. Anyway, I got cranberry wine, which is like a pretty kind of wine color, a little bit more short stature of a chrysanthemum. Okay, I believe the other one I ordered was Gertrude. I think that was right, which is kind of like a mauvey pink color. It's hard to remember because I didn't, nothing came to fruition this year. So I also got Jack Straw, which was a yellow variety. That was the only variety where all 4 of the cuttings made it. All the other ones did not do as well. I think all the other ones I had 2 out of 4 make it. Jack Straw had all of them. So that was a kind of a fun, whimsical yellow one. Frosty Morn was another one that I did, and that one looks like it could be super cool in the future. I tried to get some more purpley and pink colors, and this one has like frosted tips, which I think are beautiful. And then the last one I got, I believe, was Alexis, which is like a really fluffy pink one as well. And I ended up, that one, they delayed in sending me that one. And when it got here, they were very, very weak and only had 1 out of the 4 cuttings make it. But the ones that I did have make it, I got planted out into the garden. And so I will be able to hopefully enjoy them in the future. I think that what I've discovered a lot with my heirloom chrysanthemums is they need better support in regards to netting, which I hate doing, but I'm going to have to do it with these. there's a lot of flopping this year. And then one of the other things, I had wanted to incorporate heirloom chrysanthemums on my side and front garden, which I did not do at all this year. I should have done it, but I did not do that. However, with the construction of the new portion in the backyard that I'll be working on in 2025, one of my big goals is to buy less plants. So I will be transplanting quite a few plants from areas that are potentially a little overcrowded. And that does include some heirloom chrysanthemums that are a little bit older. I can take those out and divide them. So I'd like to divide a lot of plants and spread them out. And then of course I'm growing a whole bunch from seed. But yeah, definitely on the heirloom chrysanthemums, you know, I had some success. It just ended up not being the priority that I thought it would be for 2024. Also, one of the things I learned about heirloom chrysanthemums is creating my own propagation from them. So that was something that I experimented with this year and had really, really good success. So propagating my own chrysanthemums this year was really, really great as well. So I still think it was a success, just not a big priority for me. Okay, and number 4 on my list, and this is my last goal for 2024 gardening. My last goal was gardening on a budget, and I definitely think that that was a huge success. I struggle when I get on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram and I see these big, beautiful, perfect spaces with all these beautiful, lush plants, and having the understanding of 2 things. Either those gardens are older gardens and the gardeners have worked decades to establish them to that point, which is not where I'm at, right? Because my garden is about 7 years old at this point. Most of my garden is 3 to 4 years old, but I've lived at this particular property for 7. And then secondly, that a lot of people just have access to, you know, bigger budgets for gardening. So they can buy the full-blown beautiful tree, or, you know, they can buy 5-7 gallon plants, potted plants, you know, ready to go in there and really kind of large and established and beautiful. Or they have large spaces where they, you know, they can create, you know, areas where they put 25 plants in one single sitting kind of thing. So it's hard for me sometimes to look at that and then to compare my garden to that. And I constantly have to say to myself, that's not me, that's them. And whatever works for them is great, but it's not what works best for me. And gardening on a budget is what works best for me, because I don't have tons and tons of money and I can't go out and buy all the plants. And I want the big, beautiful, over the top garden, right? But to get there, I have to go about it in a different way. And gardening on the budget is the way that I can get to that point. So I did a ton of seed starting for 2024. Super proud of myself, really pushed myself to step out of the box, try a lot of new seed starting. And truthfully, a lot of you loved it as well. It pushed you out of the box and got you starting seeds as well. And that is a very cost-effective way to, you know, really fill in your garden. And seed starting can be very different situations. You can just be doing fast-growing annuals like sunflowers and zinnias and fill your space really quickly. You can do things, I did a lot of cool flowers where I start the seeds in the summer, plant them out in the fall, let them overwinter, and then the plant come to fruition in the spring. So that's a year-long process. And then even starting perennials from seed, which a lot of perennials will not flower their first year. So you have to wait a couple of years. You know, buying that one perennial for, you know, $12 to $20 versus, you know, having a seed and waiting a year to 2 for that to come to fruition. So while it doesn't seem like, you know, I'm saving all that much by being like, why didn't you just go buy the $20 perennial instead of waiting a year and a half to 2 years for seed? Yes, I could do that, but not buying that $20 perennial allowed me to do other things in my garden, like those hardscapes that we talked about earlier, mulching different areas, building a trellis, adding new garden beds. So by focusing a lot of energy on seed starting for starting the plants, it gave me all the beautiful plants that I wanted at a much smaller price tag and allowed me to do other projects that I wanted to do within my garden. I won't always have to build hardscapes. Eventually I'll get to the point where we're done with hardscapes, right? Because I don't have a massive garden. Like my lot is 0.25 acres and my house takes up most of that. And so I don't have a massive garden. Eventually I'll be done with hardscapes and maybe I can buy some other plants, you know, at that point in time. But seed starting it just really helped fill in my garden beautifully. Plus it brought me so much joy because I really enjoy the process of seed starting. It's been really fun to explore and learn and gain knowledge about that. I also think it gives me a different appreciation for a plant that I've grown from seed to bloom as opposed to just buying it. Now, do I still go buy plants at the nursery? Absolutely. I totally do. I'm just buying less than I have in the past, which has really helped with the budget. I also bought, anytime I needed like containers or any time I felt like I needed structure, I really always go to Facebook Marketplace first and look through in there, because even if I can just save $15, $20 on an item, that's 20 to 15, that's saved, and all that adds up throughout the year. And so buying trellis, pots, containers, looking for stone, things like that through Facebook Marketplace is a massive help to your budget. So if you haven't taken the time to start messing around on Facebook Marketplace, you really need to do that. You will be shocked at the potential in there. And you don't just have to look up garden. You can look up a ton of other different ways and approaches. And then pretty soon it learns your algorithm and what you're looking for, and it starts pushing different things in there that you might not have even considered, which is super fun. But definitely before you go buy something new, really consider looking at Facebook Marketplace if you're someone like me who's gardening on a budget. And then DIY. So I do a lot of DIY, but I say this with grace because not all of us are capable of doing DIY. My 44-year-old self, 44, God, 44. My 44-year-old self does less DIY than my 24-year-old self. When my husband and I were first married, we did all the things ourselves because we were young and our bodies were capable. As I move forward and I'm becoming a little bit older and my body's tired and I'm raising 3 kids and we have a very busy family, sometimes I don't have time. Sometimes my back just hurts and sometimes I just don't have the will to do it. So totally understand if you're in that similar place and you just want to hire someone to do it. Absolutely. I also very much believe in hiring experts if you don't feel like you can do something correctly. We hired an expert to do our French drain for us because that's not something that I felt comfortable taking on, and that French drain has worked out great. But other DIYs, I felt like I could build that wood trellis. I felt like I could do it myself outside, and that I would enjoy the process and the planning, and that I could customize it to the space that I needed. And that worked out really great. Same thing with the shade entrance, the shade garden entrance, building that as well. Going through and doing those DIY projects like laying all the mulch and covering up the grass myself was extremely helpful to my budget overall. So yes, DIY. Doing what you can with DIY. However, if that's not something you can do or you're capable of, that's fine too. You just got to save up to, hire someone to do it. I have that understanding, I can't imagine myself in 20 years still going out there climbing a ladder and DIYing a new trellis. I don't know. Maybe I'll be a badass and that'll be awesome. There's probably some awesome people out there who are still doing that at 65, 75, 80 as well. But I think DIY goes hand in hand. So you just need to be careful on your approach and making sure that you're safe throughout the process. And also making sure it's a project that doesn't need a expert like I hired someone for drainage, because drainage is an issue. But yeah, DIY is definitely a way to save money on gardening on a budget. And I have found that for 2024, my focus has shifted dramatically to gardening on a budget. I think that I love to watch all the pretty videos and look at all the beautiful pictures of other gardeners and gardeners. But like I said, the reality of the situation, is a lot of them have built it over decades, and that's why their garden is lush and beautiful. And I need to understand that as well. Some of them are able to hire people to help, do all their gardening stuff. And I need to understand that that's not me either. And then some of them have a different budget than I do and can put more money into more mature plants, hardscapes, the latest and greatest containers and gardening tools and things like that, which is not me as well. So I think it's important for all of us to turn inward and look and see what works best for you, your budget, your lifestyle, and your garden. And whichever way you are on the spectrum of, you can do anything you want versus I need to be more budget conscious, that's great. Just do what works best for you. My channel this year has definitely turned more towards gardening on a budget because that's my reality. And I felt like we needed more of that out there. We needed more people on YouTube saying, hey, I don't have all the money to go buy all this, so I'm going to grow it this way, or I'm going to divide it this way, or I'm going to trade with someone, or I'm going to find it on Facebook Marketplace, but going alternative routes to get to a beautiful end result. Okay, so 2024 garden recap. Just touching on a few things that I absolutely loved this year. My Lysianthus were absolutely gorgeous this year. I was really happy with how well they did. I really enjoyed working on the side garden, rearranging perennials, dividing perennials. Working on the smoke bush that took a beating this year from a storm and took several months to recover, going through the pruning and staking and doing all the things to support it. That was actually interesting, sad, but interesting. Let's see, always working on my front porch. Love being able to do that. I also really enjoyed, obviously, all the new hardscapes that I built this year. Spending time in my shade garden was lovely. Things that were difficult this year, I lost my weeping redbud golden falls. That was sad, and kind of still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with that. Battling the stupid armadillo. God, that was awful. All of you gardeners who deal with pests, bless you, because for real, it gave me nightmares. And several of y'all have talked over the years about the squirrels and the rabbits and the deer, and it didn't compute with me that what you were dealing with. And then now that I'm dealing with the armadillo, I'm like, oh yeah, that's super stressful and just so defeating as well when they destroy your hard work. So I know that, I'm growing out in nature and it needs to go hand in hand, but darn y'all, that armadillo just about, yeah, the armadillo's gone now, which is really good. Haven't seen signs, but I had to put up fencing and I had to put up deterrents, and oh my gosh, it was a whole series of things to do to get that darn armadillo to go somewhere else. Some of my disappointments, I had a lot of fails with tomatoes this year, and so I've actually decided not to grow them next year. My heirloom chrysanthemums did not do as good this year because I ended up being sick during their main harvesting time, and so I just missed. I waited all year and I missed a lot of those volumes, which is terrible. And they really needed to be able to be staked as well. So lesson learned for the future. Drainage issues were a bear at the beginning of the year. However, we did get them fixed. So I'm feeling really good moving forward with that as well. But all in all, there were a lot of successes and a lot of failures, a lot of joy, a lot of frustration. But I think that's kind of what a garden is like. Some days I find a lot of peace. Some days I just want to take a lawnmower to a bunch of stuff. Not as often. Mostly my gardening brings me peace, which is great. But yeah, it was a really good 2024. A lot of growth in my garden, not just for the plants, but for the layout and the style and the direction of the garden, but then also for myself. My knowledge base has grown immensely since the beginning of the year. My channel's grown pretty well as well. I'm not a fast growing channel. I do everything organically, so I don't pay for I don't pay someone to do like any of my videos or edit my videos, and I don't pay anybody to do my social media, and I don't do sponsors. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. So my channel is a little bit different in that it has to grow organically over time. But one thing that's been really nice is I have a good group of people who've been following along for quite a while, who comment on all the videos, who give amazing feedback, because legit I learn more from y'all commenting than I do anywhere else, which is really fun, because I feel like a lot of y'all are so familiar with my garden at this point that your suggestions tend to be like they're just perfectly on what I need. And so that's really, really fun. But a lot of growth across the board for me in 2024. And I am looking forward to 2025. I've got some additional big projects in mind, and we'll continue with my seed starting. Definitely will continue with gardening on a budget, because I just relish and enjoy that aspect of gardening. All right, you all, let me know in the comments below what your successes were, maybe your number one success and your number one failure. It's okay to point point out the failures. We learn a whole lot from the failures. But yeah, drop me a comment below and let me know what you're looking at from 2024 and how you feel about those successes and failures. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Every time you like and comment, it helps grow my channel so much. And if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, just drop me an emoji below, letting me know that you made it to the end of the video and that you say hi. And be sure to check me out on my social media outlets, including Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. There is an impending TikTok ban, and if that ends up going through, then I'll be posting on YouTube Shorts if you want to find any of those short video contents from Shesamadgardener. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.